we have Unity. Today we have Andrea and Rambod from Unity. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, how we can integrate AI into our Unity project. So if you're not familiar with Unity, no worries. We're going to give you a full beginner's guide and introduction to how you can get started, where you can download the software, what type of applications Unity has. We have so much for you today. So apart from that, we're also going to be talking about AI simulations, how we can use, for example, artificial intelligence and computer vision techniques like object detection. We can use image classification. We can start training our models within Unity. And we're going to be showing a few examples today on how you could use these projects for a social good application. So if you have never heard of Call for Code, I highly recommend you check it out. So we're going to put the link in the chat here, but callforcode.org, that is the link of the competition. It's a global competition for hackers, designers, scientists, everyone around the world coming together to solve problems. So this is the third year of Call for Code. The first year was all about hurricanes. Last year, forest fires. This year, it's more about COVID-19 and climate change. So we're going to be discussing a few examples of applications that use Unity, AI, IoT, all this to solve solutions. So let me introduce here Andrea and Rambod. How about you guys introduce yourselves?
Sure, I can go. So I am a solutions engineer for Unity, and basically I work with a lot of our customers to help them integrate Unity into their projects. I come from traditionally a game background, even though before that I was kind of semi in the engineering field, but I started at Unity because after being in the game industry for so long, I wanted to see different ways that tech that comes out of games could be used in a lot of different industries, a lot of different use cases that could benefit outside of the entertainment world. And I think Unity is trying to explore all of those different regions and really push their technologies to different limits.
Cool. Awesome. Super happy to have you here. So Rambod, how about you?
Yeah.
What's your experience?
My name's Rambod. I've been with Unity for about 4 years now, and I work at the AI team in Unity. And what we're kind of focused on is simulations, but also bringing reinforcement learning and some of these more machine learning techniques actually into Unity, unlocking the power for game developers. And I'm similar to Andrea. I come from a games background, have my own game studio for about 6 years. And after that, I came to Unity to kind of help developers make better games. And that's sort of the goal here. And now we've kind of been able to also flex some of that game development knowledge into non-gaming areas like Andrea alluded to.
That is awesome. So a little bit more about me. I've been using Unity for the past 5 years, actually. I joined IBM last year as a developer advocate, thanks to the Call for Code program. I live in Puerto Rico, and I've created a few applications with Unity regarding to virtual reality. So it's one of my favorite topics, VR and AR. I'm going to be showing today an example of how you can create VR and AR projects and use those projects to potentially get funding if your project wins Call for Code. So the Call for Code, for those who don't know, the grand prize is $200,000. So $200,000 that can be used as seed funding for your project. It's a global competition. So without further ado, let's take a pause here about Call for Code, and let's have Andrea present a little bit more about Unity. And if you don't know Unity, no worries. The goal here is to get developers who have experience maybe in app development or web development, servers, Docker, whatever experience you have. If you've never even tried game development, I highly recommend you do. So Andrea, take it away.
Thank you, Pedro. So for those of you who may be not only unfamiliar with like Unity, but also real-time rendering, as well as Unity as a company, I have just a short presentation. I just want to talk about kind of who we are, what our pillars are, and where we see ourselves in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so like I mentioned, a lot of our roots are in games. I'm from games. Rambod is also from the gaming industry, and that was something that sort of kicked off real-time rendering. But we're always trying to evolve our technology to fit sort of new ways that we see people are communicating with each other, how they're creating experiences, and then how can they use our technology to develop unique solutions for real world problems. So how we see the future as far as real-time technology is basically simply, a means of enhancing your applications in whatever industry you're in to do like more engaging types of interactions. And we're seeing these sort of key shifts in this application development area already. And in one regards, we're seeing things that were originally maybe more 2D become more 3D. So more immersive scenes and environments that you can move your camera around, check out an environment in your own pace, and not be constrained to just a single plane or a single image. In addition, what we had once seen as sort of offline, or things that were done kind of baked, so something like a baked render or a simulation, now we want to move that into a more real-time space so you can get instantaneous feedback while you're working or while you're interacting with the application. Another area is social and networking. So before, people would play games or consume their entertainment on an individual basis. But now, and you can see this with apps that you're downloading off of like the Apple Store or Google, there's always some type of social component. So we're seeing people want to reach out to people who are playing the same games or using the application in the same way that they are, or reach out to the community and network and share experiences. And lastly, applications are being used to tell stories, and so in the past, maybe storytelling was more of sort of a passive type of interaction or a passive type of form of entertainment. But now, we want more interactive experiences where we can change the world that we're interacting with and change the story to fit our own. And these are ways that Unity with our technology is trying to kind of help our users integrate these areas more into their own applications. Now, technically, what does that mean? Like, what is the actual technology? What are the actual tools that make up Unity? So foremost, Unity is a runtime engine. And what that means is that you can use the framework to power complex systems like physics simulations, do your rendering and your animation calculations. But alongside the engine is an editor tool. And this tool is not just made for engineers. So it's something that designers, artists, a variety of content creators can jump in and start like building applications, combining things, different assets like music, animation, videos, textures to create their applications and then push out to a multitude of platforms. And our editor is just one sort of core set of tools, but that editor can be extended with a variety of plugins and packages that are developed by Uni itself. But we also have a pretty rich developer community that are constantly creating and developing their own plugins and then sharing it on our asset store. We also have cloud services. So we have services such as analytics, simulations, We have a content delivery solution, as well as cloud build services. So where can you get a copy of Unity if you want to play around with this? And we'll go into a little bit deeper of how exactly you download it and install it. But basically, we have a free personal license. So it's something that I'll show you guys in just a bit towards the end of the presentation, exactly as an individual, where you can get your personal license and then just start playing with Unity for free right now. But there's also a pro license option. So if your team or your professional studio and you want more, I guess, more outside support for your development team, we also have a pro license that's available. And what's cool about the pro license is that it has free access to our Learn Premium network. And the Learn Premium is this really cool content database with a ton of tutorials, best practices, presentations, and videos that go over the multitude of tools and services that encompass Unity. So it's kind of a nice perk to have as part of the pro license. Okay, so that's the technology. But as a company, Unity is also something, one of our pillars is to sort of democratize the creation process. And we have deep roots in our creators, our creator community. And so we want, as a company, to be able to support and celebrate creators who are doing really cool things with our tech, and particularly doing things with the tech that improve the world that we live in. And so we got together recently and started to brainstorm different ways that we could give back to the community as a company. And that is why we started this program called Unity for Humanities, which began in 2017. But every year we're expanding the program, adding new sort of experiences and trying to reach out to more creators. But our mission statement is very similar to Call for Code, where we just want to unite creators, designers, engineers who are using Unity to inspire and empower and support each other. And the challenge is just basically use our technology to create something for social good. And that something could be anything. So the great thing about Unity is that you can use it to create anything from like an interactive film, or an educational game, or create a multitude of XR, MR experiences. And one really great example was last year's winner, which is an AR mobile application called Clean Air. And basically, this allowed a user to use their phone and scan the location that they're in to visualize air pollution in their vicinity. And you can see it in the application. It's in the image, it's layered up on top of actual feed from their cell phone camera.
Yeah, and let me just take a pause right there. Right now in Puerto Rico and in the Caribbean, we're being affected by the Saharan dust from the Saharan desert. It's coming all over from Africa to the Caribbean. And it's for some people who have asthma, it's kind of dangerous to go outside. For the first time in 50 years, this is the strongest it has been. In Puerto Rico, we've gone through hurricanes, earthquakes, forest fires. Now we have what they're calling the Godzilla dust cloud. So clean air could be repurposed for other types of things that is not just pollution. It could be also dust levels to be used in places like Puerto Rico that are affected to this. So I think it's very interesting that we can not only create these solutions, but also collaborate and think of new ideas for our communities.
And that's actually, yeah, and I was going to say that's a great point, because Unity is a great tool for visualization, and we're going to get into that a little bit. But education and information is super important, and there's so much data out there that can be used in so many good ways. But how to access that data and make it something that's consumable for everyone, so that they can affect change in their own way, is super important. And I personally believe that using technology to do that, using the Unity engine, is the new way that we're going to solve these problems. And that leads us to call for code. So aside from what Unity is doing within its own internal company, we wanted to expand that and reach out to other like-minded corporations that are also trying to lead in sort of the same problem spaces. And we figured, what greater partnership than Unity and Call for Code? So we are really honored to be able to support the teams this year, doing something like this, a webinar, but also we created these code starter kits. This was something that one of our team members from our labs team, Scott Sewell, participated in earlier in February. So he traveled out to Geneva and met with a multitude, like thousands of designers, artists, scientists, data scientists, engineers, to sort of figure out what are the key areas that the teams are going to be looking into, and then how can Unity support whatever development challenge they're going to adopt. And so we created these packages that are code snippets and real world data that are bespoke to a particular problem set, and they were made available to anyone who was interested in using Unity in their particular challenge. And in this year, as Pedro had mentioned earlier, we really wanted to focus on climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, I think these starter kits are great. Because if you don't have any ideas, or if you're just starting out learning how to program, sometimes it's tough to see what is possible, right, with the tools that we have. So these starter kits use open source tools that can help you first learn what is out there to create your own solutions, get inspiration from, but also learn the tech side, right? We have complete projects that not only include how to set up a server, but also the code, documentation, how to set up the databases. So they're complete projects that I highly recommend you check out. So we just put down here in the link the Unity Starter Kit. If you're interested in testing it out, I'm gonna give a demo later. I highly recommend you check it out. So now, Andrea, talk to a little bit more about case studies and other examples.
Yeah, so as Pedro mentioned, just kind of knowing what the possibilities are when using the technology can be very helpful. And I wanted to highlight a few case studies of some of the companies that I've worked with, that many people on my team have worked with, that are using Unity on a day-to-day to try to help out the either social, economic, environmental problems, and integrate it in either create an app within Unity or integrate it into their own ecosystem. Okay, so Immersion Studios, sorry, is a MR company, and they worked with the Veterans Association and the Veterans Healthcare Association's educational department in order to create a web-based training app. And this was something that was available on their website for anyone to download. And it basically has a 12-step walkthrough of how to properly put on personal protection equipment, and the different types of personal protection equipment there are. And this was something that was used for healthcare workers, or used by healthcare workers in IC units across the country. Another example is Simx, and they are also a VR company, but they use it in sort of like a university setting. And so they worked with a lot of medical schools, hospitals, and other healthcare centers to help train their nurses and their doctors. And they used virtual patients as well as environments. And this one was particularly cool because the environments aren't just your typical sort of hospital setting or your doctor's examination room setting, but they vary to like a mass casualty incident on a beach, or you're riding in a medevac unit and you need to know your equipment and how to work your way around this vehicle. And they also have multiplayer scenarios where you could be on like a emergency response team, and you need to know how you can coordinate with your other team members with a patient in the room. So it's very cool and super helpful. What's even more cool is that they are rapidly designing COVID applications around COVID-19. And so just recently, they have 2 training programs that are new for healthcare professionals, specifically around COVID-19. So one scenario is helping teach safety procedures for physicians when they need to treat somebody who's already been diagnosed with COVID-19. And the other application is how to train and inform workers who are on like a test site, so how they can do things as simple as like hand washing, what feels like a safe distance for between them and the patient. So this is something that you can totally check out more information on at their website that's here.
Definitely. I think this is very powerful, Andrea, because to train people in the era of COVID-19 is putting them at risk, right? Because
Yes.
You would have to put a few students, maybe a dozen students in a room. So I feel like adopting more virtual reality simulation programs is going to also allow to democratize this education. You can give high school students this software, and they can do simulation training with surgery even before they get a degree, even before they get accepted into med school. They can learn about the process in a safe environment, in a virtual environment. So I feel that this is going to not only impact the medical industry, but also first responders. So very good example. I love it.
Yeah, and just kind of to sort of piggyback off of that, I was at the Cleveland Clinic Innovate Summit last year, and I sat in on their XR track, and there was a physician there who was part of, I believe it was the imaging department, and he had been asked to do a procedure that he had not done in almost 10 years. And luckily, it was successful, and the patient survived, and it was doing great after the procedure. But it was a very scary moment, and so I've seen a lot of hospitals adopt virtual reality training programs to keep all of their employees up to date on procedures that they normally wouldn't do on a regular basis, but could save somebody's life.
That is amazing. I'm really glad that we have these technologies now. So what else do we have?
So aside from just healthcare workers, COVID-19 has also affected people on an individual level. And I wanted to point this particular application out by Explore Deep, because I feel like this is something that helps us on the ground level as well, especially for people who are suffering from anxiety or stress due to quarantining, being alone in their space for many, many months, and just mental health in general. So in this particular example, Explore Deep worked with different types of institutions, research institutions like the Emotional Mental Health Lab, to use VR to create high-end visuals and combine it with biofeedback in order to better teach the users breath control and meditation, and just in the process of teaching this, relieve anxiety in the same time. But I've seen other applications along these lines as well, having to do with applications for dementia patients, using this in sort of like an art therapy type environment. So this is something that can affect us on just our own personal level as well, or using VR and VR applications.
Yeah, definitely. Especially since VR meditation and these type of applications, excuse me, allow you to be completely immersed, and you're not only combining the visuals, but also the audio, which is just as important as the visuals. You're combining also your movement into the space. So having that interaction can really calm people. For example, I meditate in virtual reality. I do some workouts as well. So I feel like we're going to see more of these applications going from the fun and games to more the medical and the practical and the engineering side of things. So it's great to see this as well.
Yeah, and I think when we speak more about how AI can integrate into these types of apps, we'll see more of things that are less intrusive and more organic in the way we live our lives. So I've seen studios that are working on ways to use AI to recognize, little micro ticks and facial expressions in order to change the image that's on the screen to adjust to, your mental health state. So it's very exciting.
Definitely. You can have personalized medicine, personalized meditation, personalized workout programs with AI. So I feel like this is opening up a lot of doors for the ecosystem, for Unity developers, but also AI developers and programmers. This is really cool to see. So moving on, what else do we have, Andrea?
So I wanted to, because we are kind of getting into more smarter applications and integrating artificial intelligence, I wanted to talk about a project that we were developing internally with our AI team that utilizes Unity simulations. And this is an application that was used to model the spread of COVID-19 in different environments. And it's a project that's available to the public on GitHub. And you can access the code and the content, so you can check out how it was done. But I'd like to pass it over to Rambod so he can talk a little bit more in detail on this, since he was one of the team members that helped develop it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Andrea. So that's a great introduction. I think, going back to the reason why we did this, and what we sort of think about is, the biggest reason was, one, we wanted to showcase how Unity can be used for non-gaming applications, and especially showcase the power of real-time 3D. So here on my screen now, we can actually see I have the Unity editor opened up with the project loaded up as it is in GitHub. So everything that I'm going to show you guys today is actually fully available on the GitHub link as well. So what we like to think about when we think about simulations in real-time 3D is sort of three different aspects. You have the environment in a simulation, the parameters of a simulation, and then the scenarios that you're actually going to try to simulate. So in this case, the environment is essentially a store that we made. And we can kind of look around this in real time, and we see that what we essentially have is a bunch of supermarket counters. So these are the actual the shelves, things like that, where the items will be. All these little blue dots are the different aisles and the waypoints that the agents will actually move around the grocery store environment. And then over here, we actually have all of our checkouts. And this is, we can control people exiting the simulation. So I'm going to hit play while it's loading up. When we think about parameters, what we really like to think about are parameters that actually affect the simulation. So here we have all of the parameters that we've exposed in the simulation on the right-hand side. And we've broken these out into a couple different sections. One is the store policy. So this is actually the number of shoppers that are allowed into the store at any given time, the number of open registers, and whether or not one-way aisles are being enforced inside. Next, we have the shopper variables. And these are the number of infectious people and how long they usually spend at the counters with these two. And then lastly, we have the model tuning parameters. And these are actually what tunes the transmission model that we built into the system. So what is the max transmission rate distance? And what are the different exposure rates at the 0 feet and at the maximum distance? And then lastly, we have the output measures. And this is how we actually gauge the effectiveness of our simulation, where we show the number of healthy shoppers that have exited the store, the number of exposed shoppers that have exited, the percentage exposed, and the running time. And so to highlight one of the powers of using real-time simulation is that, because this is a Unity environment and it's completely abstracted away from real life, we can actually speed up how fast time is simulated. So now we're speeding this up to 10 times normal real-time speed. And we kind of chose this arbitrarily just because fastness becomes really hard to see what's going on. But the power of this is that it makes it really easy for the average person to come in here, actually be able to play around with some of these knobs and say, like, what happens if we allow 100 people into the store? And now we can see that the transmission rate is much higher. And this allows this information, rather than being exposed in charts and things like that, to be accessible by the everyday person. And we can actually use Unity to build this out for WebGL, which is actually what we did for the GitHub repo. And someone can go into just their, open up Chrome and go into the website and actually play around with this in real time. But that's sort of just touching the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, because now we see that, OK, I can demonstrate one instance of the variables for the simulation. But now, how do we show a bunch of different scenarios, right? Because we kind of talked about how the environment plus one configuration of these parameters means one scenario. So what we did is we leveraged a platform that we built called the Unity Game Simulation Platform to actually put this build up there. And what we've been able to do is run 10,000 of these simulations concurrently using different configurations for each one. So that way we can get this data at scale and actually get it back in a matter of minutes rather than spending days. When we were able to essentially simulate something like 1,000 hours of time in the store in a matter of 2 hours of real time.
All right, so Rambod, let's take a quick pause here. So if you could run the simulation back real quickly, and let's get it back on the screen here. So what you were seeing, if you're watching this, basically each dot is the shopper. It's like it's a store environment, right? And what this repo it does is that it gives you that opportunity to study. So for example, someone there, for example, you're going to go to the store to buy your groceries, and you have a contact tracer, right? This is a new thing, a new job title, not really a new job, but a new job title that's coming now. Contact tracers have to watch people who are infected, right? So this is a really good application for scientists and contact tracers. So I think that if you wanted to use this, definitely download it on GitHub. Rambod, if people have questions about this, where can they post questions? Do you have a specific place on the repo?
Yeah, in the GitHub, if you just open up an issue there, we can definitely get back to you. And it's something that we're watching as Unity, and we can jump in there and answer any questions that people might have.
Awesome. So if you have any questions about this, on how you can customize it to your own use cases, if you want to change the spheres to actually people and characters or whatever other type of environments you want to change it, you can. So I highly recommend, like, one of the best ways that I personally learned is to just try it out. So check it out. All right, so let's move on. All right, thank you so much, Rambod. Do you have any other comments about artificial intelligence and the new products that are coming out, like Mars, for example? How does that fit in the next iteration of technology?
So this is something that because it's such a new product, I believe it launched like within the last week and a half. We've been developing it for over a year, and it's going to help with AR creators to simulate the environments that they're in, to grab geolocation information so that they can better use things like pin detection in order to create more responsive types of interactions. And it's something that we're fine-tuning, we're expanding the feature set based off of how we see users are integrating it into their AR developments, but also what their needs are. And so this was something that was created because people found it difficult to be able to test in a production setting without having to build out to a device and then like go around into an environment and then have it fail or have some data issue.
Yeah, and on the AI side, it's kind of an exciting time, because when we think about real-time 3D, we think about that as some of the best environments to be able to train AI models. Because at the end of the day, whether it's through computer vision or anything like that, the AI is actually learning from pixels, right? So, when you think about that, we can do things at a much faster scale in Unity than we could in real life, without also exposing people to potentially harmful things while the AIs are learning. So something that we've done over the past couple of years is we've built what we call the Unity Inference Engine, which is essentially the plumbing to allow reinforcement learning and some of these algorithms to actually be able to run inside of Unity. So now what we're able to do is actually expose some of these and productize some of these things, whether it's machine learning for texture generation for different art assets, or ML agents to actually run different NPCs or player control characters, or even people, shoppers in a store for simulations, or it's simulations itself and being able to run these things at scale in the cloud much more quickly.
Yeah, actually, Rambod, since you mentioned texture generation, this reminded me of a new tool that we've just acquired called Art Engine. And this is something that is meant to solve the issue of how do you create a large set of textures without having to do hundreds of hours of scanning and with a limited set of data. So basically, this is an example-based workflow where you are feeding these nodes your textures, whether it's something that's from an original game or something that you're using in a photogrammetry type workflow or something you just like grabbed off the internet. And it's learning, each node is learning from the pixel data that you're feeding it to enhance and expand on the data that's there, to create variants, to up-res things, to fix artifacts within the image itself.
That is super powerful. I'm not an artist. I'm a developer.
We're all artists.
In our own way. So I'm a coder. I'm a programmer. I'm a developer. And one of the challenges I personally have is like, I want to build a game, or I want to create a nice looking room, an environment, and for virtual reality, but I don't have the textures. I don't have the artistic skills to create 3D models, and then let's not even talk about optimizing them, right? So it's cool that we have these AI powered features, and I'm looking forward to more AI powered stuff. So yeah, that's really cool. We do have to move on next to our next topic, our demo. So I'm going to be giving a demo here about Watson and Unity. So IBM has a Watson SDK. This Watson SDK basically allows you to connect to the IBM cloud and then integrate the power of the IBM cloud into Watson. So I'm not a hardcore AI engineer. I am a developer. I started programming when I was 11, doing websites. But now I'm working with artificial intelligence, using these platforms to do image classification work, to do segmentation. I'm now working with style transfer. And I'm not even working with the hardcore algorithms and frameworks like PyTorch and TensorFlow. So the tools are very accessible, right? So I recommend you check out this link. It's the SDK for Watson. And now let me show you here a quick demo of what Watson can do with Unity and the speech-to-text API. All right. And while this comes up over here, remember that we have resources in our GitHub as well. We have demos and starter kits that are not also just related to artificial intelligence, but also IoT. So if you have other ideas that if you want to connect Unity to other platforms, you can do that as well.
And I just want to mention that we are constantly trying to push into, I don't want to say push, but we want to enable developers in all different types of verticals. And so if you have a project that you're working on, or you are at a studio that's doing something that's amazing work and you think that Unity would be a great tool for your team, please reach out to us and share your story with us.
Definitely. Thank you, Andrea. All right, so let me share here a quick demo. Now, this is a fresh project. I actually created this project with the Unity 2018 version with the LTS, long-term support. The reason is because Watson best supports 2018. Just an FYI if you plan to develop in the future with this. So basically here, what we have is a series of examples. So I have already imported the SDKs that we downloaded earlier. both the Watson SDK as well as the Unity SDK core. And then I also got my credentials from the IBM Cloud. Remember, if you don't have an IBM Cloud account, you can create one pretty easily for free. So let's go here to one of the examples. I want to show you how we can stream a voice input into Unity and have Watson give back text. So this is what it's called, speech to text. So I'm already here in this scene. This is called example streaming. As you can see, we have a few different components in our hierarchy. So we have a handler. We have a script that basically handles the communication to the Watson APIs. We have a canvas that contains a text object. That's where we're going to actually display the speech. And then the event system. So make sure you grab your API key, you put it in there, and then let's hit play to test it out. So, does this work? It does. So the precision is pretty good. In my experience, it understands my speech. Sometimes, since I speak Spanish, it gets a little bit confused, but for the most part, it's pretty incredible that we're able to stream speech in real time to Watson, and it gives us back results. So imagine the possibilities of using real-time captions in augmented reality. Imagine you're talking to someone who lives in China, and you have an AR headset. You could use the Watson APIs to do real-time captions that you can see right in front of the person. And that's just getting started here. So you can also integrate in the scene here different objects. So for example, you could add a character in here and have the character talk back to you. So many possibilities. So I highly recommend you check this out. You try it out for yourself. And if you have any questions, please let us know in the GitHub. All right. Let's go to the next part. Let's wrap up. Okay, so that was an easy way to get started with speech to text APIs. And we have other examples as well in the SDK. Let me share my screen real quick to show you where you can get started. All right, so once you're in the GitHub, you can see here all the instructions you need. So you can watch, if you scroll all the way down, we have a YouTube playlist that I highly recommend you watch. You can find it right here. So check this out. This is where we can get started with the speech to text example, but we also have others as well. You'll see here that you can have a language translation service. You can have a classifier, personality insights. You can have the opposite of speech to text, which is text to speech. So check this out. All this is free. It's accessible and open source on GitHub. If you have any issues or any problems, feel free to open one over here. Okay, so now let's wrap up and talk a little bit more about where you can get started with Unity and also where you can register for Call for Code. So Andrea, how about you talk about a little more where you can get the resources for Unity?
Sure, thank you, Pedro. I'm gonna share my screen one more time. Okay, so hopefully you can see this Unity store landing page. And basically, it will split you off into either first-time users or returning users that already have the Unity hub installed, as well as registered with a Unity account. But if you're a first-time user, you can start here. And basically, it will ask you to download our Unity hub, which is kind of a central location that will manage all of your different Unity versions, as well as the different projects that you create in Unity. And there's some terms of services, but once you click through this and agree, it'll start downloading the hub, which looks like this. And basically, you'll have different tabs off to the side that you can access. So this is where, if you have any Unity projects that are already on your local, it'll be listed here. We have different types of tutorials if you're just getting started, and sample projects that you can start downloading and just take a look at to see, if there's a game that or an application that is similar to the one that you're trying to create. You can grab one of these projects. And then, as well as different links to our community, our forums, our Unity blog, and then quick way to ask and get answers at answers.unity.com. But where you need to go to actually get a version of Unity is in this Installs tab. So once you select here, you can add different versions of Unity. So one thing that I wanted to point out is that we have different text streams for Unity, depending on what feature set you need, just like what state you are in your production. So for those of you who want to play around in Unity and grab all the latest bells and whistles, you can grab our 2019.4 LTS version. And LTS stands for long-term service. So this is something that we will keep sort of fixing bugs and integrating features into for the next 2 years. So you can just select your official release here, click Next, and it will allow you to optionally select a platform that you want to build for, and it will integrate that platform's SDK into the Unity installation. So for example, if you're building for Android, it will ask if you want to if you want to also download the Android SDKs, as well as all of the tools that you'll need to build for Android. The same thing for iOS, if you want to do a Linux build or a WebGL build. And then you can add these later if you're not quite sure, or you start out with a particular platform and you want to expand later on. So if you don't have anything checked, which is perfectly fine, you can just click Done. We're not going to go through the installation now, but you'll see a new card that appears here, and it'll give you a progress of the installation, and then you'll be able to track all of that installation information, as well as what platforms you have support for here in the install section. And if you ever want to add those modules later, you can go here and add a module. So once that's done, and you have a version of Unity available, then you can simply go to your projects section, click Add, and you just need to, I'm sorry, not Add. I always click this by accident. New. You can click the New button, and it'll bring up templates to help you get started in a particular type of application. So if you want to do a 2D versus a 3D, and if you want to use any of our high def or universal render pipeline templates. So this is something, if you really want sort of graphic rich features and tool sets, you would choose one of these guys. And there's a lot of information about the differences between these two and the technology behind how these were built. So I highly encourage you guys to take a look at our different render pipelines for those of you who are interested in graphics. But once you choose a template, you can name your project, choose the location where you want all of the project directories to be installed to. And then your project will be listed here in your project list. So I'm just going to choose one of our demo projects. Okay. Oh, actually, I just recently upgraded my Unity version, so I want to avoid doing the upgrade process to my individual projects. This won't happen. Actually, I'll just create a new one. So I'll create a 3D one. And now it'll go through sort of the building of all of the libraries that you need to run the Unity engine, as well as install all of the different folders and packages that are like modulated tool sets within Unity. So while that's happening, I'll just show you what the directory looks like on your local. So here's a sample of what you'll see. So there's your libraries, your packages, and your assets folders are what's important. As soon as this finishes really quickly, I just want to walk you through some aspects of the editor that can help you sort of get confidence in moving around inside, and then you experiment and take it from there.
Yeah, and a quick question, Andrea, in the chat. Is Unity free? How does it work, the licenses? That was a question we had.
Mm-hmm. So the personal licenses are absolutely free, and there are some terms around how much revenue that you're expecting to make from your application, but that it's something that is relatively high. So if that's not a concern, then all of the features are absolutely free, and whatever features are in our professional edition is the same exact features that you're going to see in our personal edition. So this is the editor default layout when you first open it, and just a few menus that I want to point out because they're integral to kind of the Unity workflow. So I want to make sure that that kind of understand our system so that it makes it really easy to build off of that, because every other sort of workflow is very similar in that way. So the first thing is the project menu here, and this is basically where you're going to either drag your assets inside the editor, or inside of that directory in the Explorer that I showed you guys just before. You can drag it into the assets folder there, and they'll appear here in your project view. And you can drop from here into your scene view, which is here. And all of these menus are dockable, so you can tear them off and save locations, or save layouts. So if there's a particular workflow that really works for you, you can customize the UI layout to your taste. So this is the scene view where you can go ahead and drop things like 3D objects. So I can go ahead and inside the hierarchy, go ahead and create a cube. And I have transform tools that are similar. If you're used to using a 3D application like Max or Maya, they're very similar to that same set of tools, and they're located here in this toolbar. But I can do things like rotate an object, scale my object up, or move the object around inside the space. And then you'll notice that I have another viewer called the game view, and this is basically what you see is what you get. So whatever you're seeing in the game view, when you build your application, depending on what platform you have, you'll be able to see how this is going to look inside your application while you're moving it around inside the hierarchy or inside this scene view. And then the next kind of area is the hierarchy and this inspector and the idea of components. So as you can see, we have a main camera and a directional light. So the hierarchy is everything that's going to be within this particular sort of environment, or if it's a game, this particular level. And you can, just like I dropped the cube in, you can pull in many different things to compose this scene. And you can have multiple scenes. You can nest scenes within scenes. So it's also an organizational tool for your different assets to work in relationship to each other. The next sort of concept within Unity is this idea of components. And if you notice when I click on the cube, you'll see this menu here called our inspector. That will change depending on what's currently selected. So if I select my camera and you'll see if I rotate the camera around, it's changing the view or what I'm seeing in my game view. But in addition, in the inspector, you'll see that there's different components that make this object a camera. So I have a camera component, I have an audio listener. So I can add different components to sort of define what this object is. And the same thing with this light, I have a light component. And this is sort of like this little kind of identifier module. And the same thing for my cube, I have something that identifies it as a render, a mesh object.
This is great, Andrea. So as you can see, it's really easy to get started with Unity. We do have to wrap up, Andrea, with the tutorial. But I just want to thank you both, Andrea and Rambod, for your time today to give our community more details about Unity, how you can get started. As Andrea was showing, that's just placing a cube took, what, a few seconds to do? And the cool thing is that you can visualize that in different platforms. So before we go, how about we talk about the different platforms? One of the great things about Unity is that it's cross-platform. I've created Unity applications for Magic Leap, iOS, Android for my computer, but also WebGL. So what are the platforms that are supported by Unity?
Oh, I can take this. So like you saw kind of in the modules, we support like mobile applications, so iOS, Android. We do standalone PC, Linux, Mac, Windows. We have close partnerships with a variety of hardware companies, headsets. We do web applications, so WebGL. We have a new solution for web applications called Tiny, which is very exciting, and that is based off of some new technology that it's definitely more time, a lot more information than we have time for in this session. But there's a ton of, I'm trying to...
Yeah, even things like Pokemon Go. People interact with Pokemon Go. There's like hundreds of thousands of millions of people a day interact with Pokemon Go, and I believe Unity powers Pokemon Go. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely. And the great thing about developing on Unity is that you can develop in one sort of project and then build out to all these different platforms without having to make separate projects for each one.
Definitely. And Rambod, how about you? Why do you like to use Unity for your projects?
Yeah, I think multi-platform is honestly the biggest reason why, and just how easy it is to prototype and get something started. Like the coronavirus project, for instance, we actually essentially finished the project within a day, and then we spent the rest of the time fine-tuning it, which is really where you want to be spending your time. You don't want to be spending your time building boilerplate, getting everything started up. And I think the second part is a multi-platform. It's really nice to be able to build something for PC, and then with a click of the button, have it working on my phone, and then have it on my Apple TV for the big screen to show people. It's really great for that.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Andrea and Rambod, again, for your time. So once again, everyone, if you're interested in using Unity, go to their website. Today, we were focused more on the social good applications that you can build with Unity. We have amazing resources down below in the link in developer.ibm.com/call-for-code. There you can find other starter kits that are not just related for Unity. Sometimes you're going to need, apart from your Unity application, a backend, a server, a website. Where are you going to host that? So think about that as well as you create your projects, that sometimes almost always you're going to need other applications to complement your solutions with Unity, or also your phones. I feel today we need to think in a cross-platform way. So yeah, thank you so much. Stay safe out there, and I hope that all of you participate in Call for Code. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out on Twitter. and on Slack. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.